We call to order the special meeting for the Neighborhood Improvement Commission. Today is Tuesday, April 5th, 2022. Jackie, can we get a roll call, please?
Shonda LaBeouf,
Present.
Dennis Alexander,
Here.
Ramona Alita Reed,
Excused.
Alex Miller,
Here.
Veronica Velasco,
Excused.
Ray Reardon.
Here.
So for those who are not here, you can view this meeting on the City of Seaside YouTube channel. If there are any items that have risen after the 72-hour posting deadline that has been released, Jackie?
No.
Okay, we're on number 3, public comment. Members of the public wishing to address the commission on matters within the jurisdiction of the City of Seaside but not on this agenda may do so during the public comment period for up to 3 minutes. Comments on specific agenda items are heard under that item. For the public record, please state your name. Yes, sir. Come up to the dais. Okay, to the mic.
Ma'am, if this is regarding one of the items on the agenda, we're going to get to that next.
Okay.
If this is anything that's not on our agenda, sorry, Chairwoman.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Just that as a citizen who has been trying to get a hold of someone to talk about this, especially Mr. Alfred Soto, I will have been trying to call him and have not been called back multiple times over the past year on this. And that was really discouraging and is not how a citizen or someone who truly cares about what's going on and the person that this is going on with. So really discouraging, and that like we didn't care about what was happening in our city.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, move on to item 4, business. Consideration of a declaration of a public nuisance for abatement at 335 Sonoma Avenue, 355 Sonoma Avenue, and 1280 Canyon Del Rey Boulevard. Staff, thank you.
Good evening, Neighborhood Improvement Commission.
Good evening.
My name is Alfred Soto. I'm the Code Compliance Coordinator here for the City of Seaside. And I am going to present just some facts about why the Seaside Building Department and Code Compliance would like the designation of these 3 properties, 335 Sonoma Avenue, 355 Sonoma Avenue, and 1280 Canyon Del Rey as a public nuisance. In the City of Seaside Property Maintenance Code, in Title 17.36, allows the Neighborhood Improvement Commission to declare properties as a public nuisance, which would allow the City of Seaside, either city employees or contracted individuals, to abate a nuisance when the administrative remedies have been unsuccessful. That's where we find ourselves tonight with these 3 properties. In that same section of our municipal code, there are requirements for posting and notifying the property owner that this abatement hearing will occur. That is found at 17.36.090 of the Seaside Municipal Code, and that has been adhered to. I personally posted each one of those properties, as well as hand delivered the notice to the property owner. So the property owner has been properly notified. Going back to the records of our code enforcement complaints regarding these properties. The very first one received in my records is February 17th of 2016. The complaint was junk accumulation on the property. And since then, and that complaint was for two properties, the 335 Sonoma and the 355 Sonoma Avenue properties. Including that complaint, 335 Sonoma Avenue has received a total of 8 documented complaints that I could find in both hard copy and on our city C-Click Fix software program where the community can submit digital complaints. There were 8 total complaints for that address. 3 complaints for 355 Sonoma Avenue, and no public complaints about 1280 Canyon Del Rey Boulevard, which is also for your consideration tonight. But the city's code enforcement actions at that property have all been proactive based on the accumulation of items that we can see both from the public right of way and adjoining properties. The condition of that property also just does not meet the city's standards for what we'd like the curbside appeal of their properties to be. I do have some photos prepared. Jackie, if you can maximize the first one. This is just a little bit of background here for you guys. This is an aerial that, try to get a good view of the file here. We actually, yeah, thank you, that's great. So this was an aerial view of the 2 homes on Sonoma Avenue. To the left is 335 and to the right is 35, sorry. The very left house is 335. There's one in the middle, which is 345, I believe. And then there's one to the very right, which is 355. The one in the middle, we're not talking about that one today, just the one on the left and then the one on the far right. So as you can see, this aerial was taken February of 2018. My eyesight is correct up there. The file name, I named the files there. So you can see the accumulation of debris at the rear yard of 335. At this time, when this aerial was taken, 355, it actually doesn't look too bad. We will move this along. Hopefully my clicker works. It's on, so I might need your help, Jackie. You can hit the next slide there. This is an aerial taken February 2021. Again, 335 on the very left. It looks like the accumulation of items has grown since the last aerial. 355 at the far right, you can see a little bit of accumulation of items there in the rear yard. If we can go on to the next slide, please. Okay, looks like we moved past the aerials. What I wanted to show, there were more aerials. In a 2015 aerial, if you can, that would be great. It showed what we would like our properties to look like here in Seaside. No accumulation of items in the front or the rear that would be considered junk. As we saw in the very latest aerial, that's not where we're at today. If we can go back to the photos that were taken today, yeah, we can start here. Just blow them up. These photos that we're looking at here right now were all taken today to show the commission what the conditions are as of this morning and this afternoon. It is now. Okay. So what you're looking at here is 335 Sonoma Avenue. This is the front yard. This is the driveway. There has been an attempt to remove some of the items items by the property owner there in the driveway. A considerable amount of items have been removed from view of the public on Sonoma Avenue. Just click. I may need your help. You can keep going through. I want to get to the rear yard. This is the side yard of 335 Sonoma. Front yard this morning. Okay, so we're looking at here is the rear yard of 355 Sonoma. This has the grown in size. And if the property owner would like to address the commission, she may corroborate with what my suspicion is. The items that were at the front of the properties in view of the public have simply been shuffled to the rear yard based on my inspections. All the photos that you see today were taken from legal vantage points, city sidewalk, a public alley to the rear does have a fence, but the fence is low enough that even someone from at my height has no problem legal and snapping a legal photo of the conditions. This is the front yard of 355. We can go back, Jackie, thank you. Front yard of 355. I do want to say what you see here, as our code compliance coordinator, I do not consider what you see on the left side of the yard there to be junk. There may be some photos that show a little bit of a closer view. They are yard decorations. They are unique, but they do not classify as junk. I do want to put that on the record that what we're looking at here is a very neatly cared for front yard at 355 Sonoma. We do have an inoperable vehicle that is stored in the front there. Tonight, we're not asking to remove any vehicles. This is simply the accumulation of rubbish, debris, and what the city defines as junk from these properties. These photos here are of the 1280 Canyon Del Rey property. They are taken from the adjoining property, which is multifamily apartments. These photos were secured with the permission of the rightful occupants there at that multifamily residential apartment complex. This is the rear yard of 1280 Canyon Del Rey. Accumulation of items, a dead Christmas tree that's sitting on top of already dry landscape. This is the front yard of 1280 Canyon Del Rey. A significant change has happened here as well. Significant cleanup has occurred of the front yard area of 1280 Canyon Del Rey since the posting of the notice that this hearing would happen tonight. There's been significant cleanup at 1280 Canyon Del Rey, save for maybe a few items there in the front. I would say this is what we would like our properties here to look like in the city. But the photos that we just finished viewing with the chain link fence, that would be the rear yard of this house. Okay. I will now go through each of these three properties just briefly so that we can see the code enforcement actions at each one. 1280 Canyon Del Rey Boulevard. Code enforcement has sent 5 notices to the property owner, all informing the owner of conditions of junk and debris, of stored vehicle in the front of the house, inoperable vehicle. This would be the van that was in the photo. At 1280 Canyon Del Rey, the Seaside Code Enforcement Department has issued $2,200 worth of fines which as of this time have not been paid. The Code Enforcement Department has recorded one notice of violation with the Monterey County Recorder's Office for non-compliance of the city codes. As of today's date, this property, 1280 Canyon Del Rey, does not have active garbage collection service. And as I did state, noticeable cleanup has occurred in the front yard area. The rear yard still does have the accumulation of debris, dry grass, dry Christmas tree stored in the back, all pose fire concerns in the event of a fire on the property. 355 Sonoma. City Code Enforcement has provided the property owner with 4 notices. Again, all indicating there's accumulation of items that are not in compliance with the city property maintenance code. The city has issued $2,100 worth of fines, which have not been paid for as of this time. And as well, at this address, we have recorded 1 notice of violation against the title with the Monterey County Recorder's Office for these violations continuing to occur. As of today's date, there is active garbage collection service at this address, 355 Sonoma Avenue. The front yard area is uniquely decorated. The only visible violations from the front yard, which would be here standing on Sonoma Avenue, would be the inoperable vehicles stored within the front setback area of the property, as well as the east side of the dwelling on the side yard is filled with debris and rubbish, which is stored very close to the adjacent home. Again, we're considering if a possible fire were to occur, the likelihood of fire spreading to adjoining properties is high. The rear yard of 355 Sonoma is almost completely filled with debris and rubbish as of this morning. 335 Sonoma Avenue. Code Enforcement has provided 4 notices to the owner indicating the requirement to abate the jumping debris nuisances, as well as inoperable vehicles stored in the front setback of the property. $2,100 worth of fines have been issued to the property owner, which have not been paid as of this time. City's also recorded 1 notice of violation against the title with the Monterey County Recorder's Office. As of today's date, there is no active garbage service at this location. The front, both sides, and the rear yard is almost completely covered with junk, debris, and rubbish. The city and Monterey County Adult Protective Services have reached out to the property owner, inquiring if the owner would be open to assistance of any kind. The Monterey County Adult Protective Services did attempt around February of 2020, at which they notified me that the property owner declined assistance. And the City of Seaside Family and Community Support Program, after being unsuccessful via telephone several times, did make in-person contact with the property owner in February of this year, 2022. However, the property owner denied assistance from the Seaside Family and Community Support Program, but they did want to state that they are still willing to offer support at any level that is appropriate. That is all for my presentation. I do just want to reiterate the fact that we do have adjoining properties in very close proximity to these homes that if unfortunately a fire may occur with the load that I've personally observed and I've shown in the photos tonight, the likelihood of fire spreading in, especially at a rate that would be challenging to combat is high. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Soto, thank you for your presentation. I've got a couple of questions which would cover all three properties in general, maybe a couple per each property. First of all, if you could just summarize the code. Is the code does it pertain strictly to the property from viewed from the front? I just want to make sure that that this code is appropriate for what's being given to us here this evening. Does the code does it pertain to just the front of the property or also to the rear?
Yeah, I have it here. I can read it. Seaside Municipal Code 17.36.030, subsection B, as the accumulation or storage of junk. The accumulation or storage of junk, including cabinets or other household fixtures, debris, equipment, or parts thereof, furniture, garbage, household appliances, or parts thereof, inoperable vehicles or parts thereof, lumber, rubbish, salvage materials, sinks, tires, or toilets, which constitute a fire hazard and or are stored or accumulated in a manner which is visible from a public street, alley, or adjoining property.
Okay. I've got a couple.
Okay, go for it. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I think that answers it quite, the alley, adjoining property. In any of these properties, is there, from what the city and staff knows, are there any physical, mental, or financial limits to why these owners are not able to address these allegations?
I would merely be speculating. I do not know for sure.
Okay. And there were a couple that have no active garbage collection. Is that by choice, from what you know, or is again, is there just not a standing a capacity in order to get to purchase garbage collection?
Yeah, City of Seaside Muni Code 8.28.100 does require garbage collection service for every occupied structure here in the city. And as to why that is not occurring here, I do not know.
And to your knowledge, have the owners responded to the assistance offers from either the county or other agencies that have offered?
From what I've heard from the county and from our City of Seaside, I'm not sure I get the name right, Family and Community Support Program, help has been denied.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Does anyone else have any questions?
No, I'm sorry. The trash thing, who oversees that? I mean, when I bought my home, they were on top of me. You had to have trash. And so does someone oversee that, you think?
It's a joint effort
Is it?
between the garbage company and City of Seaside code enforcement to make sure that code is adhered to.
Okay.
I do also want to say that in this section of our code that outlines what's happening tonight, it does state that once you guys do reach your decision, that would be documented and then given out. So no decision has to be made right here, right now. But So long as it's recorded and reported, that's what we're looking for.
Is the owners of these properties have anything to say at this time? Yes.
You come to the podium and speak.
Yes,
Oh, the properties that we're currently talking about.
correct.
I got a poster board so then you know actually who I would be addressing. But I have pictures.
Yeah.
So there's,
Go. The microphone.
Victoria Samora Phillips, and I own the property right next door to 355. And I inherited that piece of property in 2009. And
Chairwoman, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I really apologize. At this moment, this is a public hearing. And the next step is to hear from the owners of the property, and then it goes to public comment. I'm sorry about that. So you'll get your chance to speak. I apologize,
yeah.
Chairwoman. It's now the time for the owners of the property to come forward.
Oh, sorry.
I'll be patient.
You will get your time to speak, I promise.
Thank you. So, as Alex said, we, first, if the owners of the properties at 355 Sonoma, 335 Sonoma, or 1280 Canyon Del Rey wish to make any comments, now is the time. One more time, if the owners of 1280 Canyon Del Rey, 335 Sonoma, and 355 Sonoma have wished to make any public comments, now is the time for them to do so. Okay, we'll now take public comment. Ms. Phillips, please. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Oh, excuse me. The city
Yeah,
attorney.
go ahead and let everybody know that the owner did not come up and that now you're opening public comment.
Okay.
We had no responses, just to make a nice clean record.
Thank you.
Right?
Since we have had no responses from the owner, we're now taking public comment about this issue. Thank you.
Thank you for letting us speak to this issue. I'm Victoria Samora Phillips, and I own the property right next door to the property at 355 Sonoma Avenue. I inherited that piece of property from my parents in 2009, and I have been upgrading that piece of property over the years as money and time has allowed me to do so. I made this little poster board because I think I didn't realize Mr. Soto would do such a fine job of outlining what has happened over the years. I think my call to the Monterey County Office of Health prompted the 2020 visit to her home because of my concern about what was going on at the property and what was happening to her, because I had seen hoarding shows on TV, and I was concerned for her safety and health, as well as my property. And I've been getting complaints from my property owners that they were concerned about, first of all, her health, because she was at one point sleeping in her car until it got so full of junk that she could no longer fit in her car. And then secondly, my second round or third round of renters said that they asked if they could have a pet, namely a cat, to control the mice and rat issues that were developing from all the clutter and trash that was around accumulating at her property. So then the third issue was if her house got on fire, that mine, you saw pictures of my home, which is right next to hers. It's all made of wood and a little bit of stucco, but the fences are all of wood. And if her property caught on fire, not only would my house go up like that, but the house next door to her would also go up like that. So I wrote, so I taught, like Mr. Soto said, the lady told me, she called me back on the telephone. She said that Mrs. White had refused any assistance and was not allowed to go into her home. But so that ended that. I've sent 3 letters to the city of Seaside, 3 letters to Monterey County Health Department, and 3 letters to the fire department, saying that I was really concerned for everybody's safety. So I'm going to leave this poster board with you, and I sent Mr. Soto an email saying that I heard that this was going to happen, and I was really very happy to hear, not only for our concerns, but for hers too. You know, I have compassion and sympathy. She's a very nice lady, and I've spoken to her numerous times. I've had my daughter who's very nice, and she spoke to her, and then also my worker bees have kind of, you know, surrounded her and said, you know, well, all of us have said, we'll help you gather up your stuff and do whatever you want to do with it. But she declined. So it's with a compassionate heart that I'm here. It's not, none of us are, all of the neighbors have told me the same story. They came running over to me and said, well, you know, how do we deal with this? So we're bringing it to you folks for asking for assistance to help us deal with this situation. So anyway, I'll leave this with you. You can look at the pictures and help us, please.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to me.
Hello. I live at 365 Sonoma. I know Mr. Soto. I didn't know how much was happening. So probably.
Can you please state your name?
My name is Devin Matthews. I live at 365 Sonoma, and I share an alley, the obstructed alleyway, actually filled with rubbish, trash, stuff, whatever you want to call it. It has only gotten worse over the past year and a half I've been living there. I started renting in October of 2020. The trash has only accumulated. Raccoons are there a lot. Every night. Every night there are raccoons, and these are well-fed raccoons. That's the other thing. It's no, I mean they fought, and I thought I was gonna have to move. Like these, I have a tiny 6-pound cat. If my cat gets outside, he's ripped apart. Like there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Anyone who has a small dog, they're gone. These raccoons are well-fed, but also just as the woman said before me, I'm here for compassion, because this is not someone someone clearly needs help. We all need help. We can't do this on our own. She has been moving the debris back into her backyard. Someone who lives right next to it, I've seen the fence, it's very small. I can see the walkway from my house, and I have been noticing that is what happened once the fence started to get cleaned out. With the other thing with this is that the decomposition of, say, like cardboard and things like that leads to extreme growth. My plants, mind you, I don't water my lawn, I don't do anything, it's sand back there. I have nearly 3-foot grass. Again, it's sand. It's not supposed to be fertile, but it has made these things fertile, and with that, things are dry. I know that the owner also as many people do, we all smoke and we live in California. And that's the other thing, that's another worry, is the fire code. But really for me, it's the raccoons, the pests, things like that. And it's also just the safety of the person who's living at these properties. It makes me really sad because it's not a person not in pain. And I think that it would really show compassion on the city's part if we could, help someone. This isn't just about how a yard looks. So yeah, I just want to let you know, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews.
Ma'am, gentlemen, appreciate you guys. My name is Jimmy Martin, the owner of 345 Sonoma. When I first bought this home, this was not an issue of mine, although it looked messy, wasn't, curb appeal was not there. I'm not the guy to complain about what someone else is doing in their yard. It's now gotten to the point that it's between the rodents, the smells. If you think the pictures, the bad going smell over that fence. Stand on my front porch every morning and get a whiff of what I walk out to every day and my family. It's unfortunate, Mrs. White. I want nothing but help for you. I want everybody to come together and exhaust every resource we can. You're nothing but the sweetest lady. I've said that from the start. Whatever I can do to help you, I've tried and offered. And, oh, excuse me. I just want to address her so she knows that this has nothing to do with curb appeal. Like Devin, right? Like Devin said, it's a safety hazard. It's a health issue. I think I've been here for 3.5 years now. I've never seen a light turn on. I could go on and on about the pests. I have several photos that were sent to Alfred when I first moved there after the first winter, documented rats killed. Since then, I stopped counting. Don't have a cat. I don't plan on getting one either to maintain this problem because it is not my problem. It became my problem, but it's not where to start. It's becoming very stressful. It's hard for me to look at my house every day, want to fix it up, want to make it better, want to make the neighborhood better. Because my curb appeal, no one's gonna ever want to buy that house. I could be stuck there, I could not, I don't know. But when I originally bought it, this was not an issue. I couldn't state that more. So Alfred, time and time again, any complaint I've ever made, I'll take my shirt off my back and give it to you. This is why I asked me to paint her house, I paint her house. Whatever I could do. For me to complain, it takes a lot. I'm nervous telling you guys that I feel wrong, like I'm complaining, telling on somebody essentially. It's not me. It's not what I'm about. But like I said, unfortunately, it's stressed me out to the point that I'm here. We're all here. It became more than just my issue. Glad to see the neighborhood is coming together and trying to use its resources to get this straightened out. Let us all move on and live a happy, healthy life. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
City Attorney, is my understanding that Ms. White is in the audience tonight?
That's what?
Is Ms. White in
Yes.
the audience tonight?
Yes, she's there too, please.
Yes, okay, so it would be appropriate to, Ms. White, would you like to speak tonight? Because this group is going to be determining whether or not your houses are a public nuisance. That's the next step. So if you would like to say something to these people, now would be the time to talk to them. I'm trying to make the record really clear so that I know you're here. So you have an opportunity to address these people who are going to be deciding about your property and cleaning up, the city's going to clean up your property. You understand that? Ms. Ms. White? Chair, just report that she's here and has had the opportunity to speak and, you know, again,
We have Ms. White, the owner of the properties in question, here in the audience, and she was offered a chance to speak and address the issue at hand, and she has not taken up our offer.
Madam Chair. I just had a couple of questions for the city attorney.
yes.
My first question, ma'am, is, are the owners all three the same owner?
Yes, that's my understanding, is that each of the properties that you're being asked to consider a public nuisance, determine that they are public nuisances based upon the information that you've been provided by Mr. Soto, are all owned by the Claudia Marie White Trust.
And that also includes 1280 Canyon Del Rey Boulevard.
That is correct.
And the relative cost to the city to clean up these properties, do we have a rough estimate what that cost might be?
I do not know that, and I'm not sure if city staff has gone through that calculation yet. There's a process, obviously, that we have to go through, and this is the first step in that process. Well, actually, it's the second step in the process.
And the decision tonight is a final decision?
No, the decision tonight can be appealed, and you can also appeal it, I think, to the city council, and obviously she could challenge it ultimately in court if she chose to do that.
Thank you. You've answered all my questions. I appreciate that.
Any discussion?
The one thing that I'm the most concerned about is the rodents, is the pests. I heard it from all three speakers. I'm greatly concerned about that. Madam Chair, as the Neighborhood Improvement Commission, we hope our neighbors in our city of Seaside don't have these kind of issues. And I know that I heard a call for help to help our fellow resident, and we are here for that. But I think that the city does need to take a stand against the rodents. So that's my position. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I feel that we really don't have much of a choice tonight, particularly since the owner was given the opportunity to explain what the reason is and any limitations for that are standing for her to rehabilitate these properties. So I'm thinking there's no choice but to go to the next step in this process and consider a nuisance. I just want to let the owners know that there are organizations out there, not just the city, but there are nonprofit organizations. There's with the county, Greenways that can help in this process. We would just love to have for the owner to ask for them and take this into consideration. But I see no other choice than to do what we have to do tonight based on what I've seen, and particularly because this is a major fire hazard. I'm a volunteer with Red Cross. I've seen, I called out to help families get aid because their houses or mobile homes caught on fire for this exact particular reason. So I just want to say that, without hearing more, my mind is very much made up.
First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Soto for doing a great job on documentation. As we all know, that's what this is all about, is documentation and going through that whole process. And Mrs. White, I'm from a small town in Kansas. I saw raised right beside a family like this. And I just need to put on record, you need to reach out for help because it's not going to get any better. And we have to act for this city of Seaside to make things better for everybody around it. It has to happen. So please get some help. You really do need to. But that's all I have to say.
First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Stoner for doing such an excellent job documenting these properties. And I'd like to thank our audience members for coming forward and sharing their experiences and reinforcing the importance of getting this taken care of as soon as possible. I think it's unfortunate that it had to come to this point, but it's something's got to be taken care of. These my concerns are like the rodent problem and the fire hazard that this poses, and I think that we have the ability to take care of something that something like this, because it poses, it's such a danger to fellow residents, the residents living next to the property and behind it. So if anybody is ready to make.
Madam Chair, I will make the motion that the houses or the properties at 335 Sonoma, 355 Sonoma, and 1280 Canyon Del Rey be declared a public nuisance for abatement with the city of Seaside.
Second.
Jackie, can we do a roll call? Yes.
Dennis Alexander,
Yes.
Alex Miller,
Yes.
Ray Reardon.
Yes.
Motion carries that we consider, or that we take care of the abatement of, excuse me, the public nuisance for abatement of the properties at 335 Sonoma, 355 Sonoma, and 1280 Canyon Del Rey Boulevard, taken care of. Okay. Thank you. Now we are on to item B, consideration of fund recommendations for the upcoming fiscal year.
Madam Chair, I was disappointed, I should say, in the amount of the less of discussion. The first round that we had much more discussion over the items that are on our recommendation to the city council. So I think it warrants more of a discussion.
Okay, we can do that. You have any, would you like to, how would you like to?
Well, when we did the initial round of recommendation funds for our most recent recommendation, I'm concerned that some of the things we're not able to achieve, and I'm just would like to go over the list again.
Okay,
We have that.
all right, do we have a list?
The list is 70,000 for sidewalks, which we did not denote any area of Seaside. We did not actually give the city council any kind of direction for that 70,000. 20,000 to a community garden, 5,000 to holiday decorations, 3,000 to trees, and 10,000 to murals. I also think that there might be a switch with some of the funds for the fire department. Mr. Little, maybe have you heard of this or?
The conversation you, Shonda and I had was transferring the allocation for murals to do the mural at the fire department.
So the thought was that fire department's being repainted and there's a mural that was an old mural. And the thought was that some of the money for the bridge, it gets transferred over to the mural on the fire department. That was the thought. I believe it was 15. We allocated $30,000 that the city council approved for the bridge. And if we, and I believe the switch was to spend 15,000 on the mural at the fire department and 15,000 at Laguna Grande to make up a deficit for the Parks and Rec Commission. But that's not, this discussion item today is for these items.
Well, and it also included the property.
Oh, it also included that. Oh, okay. I think it does too.
So is that what you're wanting to do? Yes. So, how did you want to proceed with this?
I was kind of hoping to get the city, a representative from the city council's opinion on this, if possible, but
I could tell you, and to it on
Please, or speak louder.
that. No, I'm fine. Giving. This is what I do now. Councilman Garcia got approved $45,000 for the tree, for the decorations. So that money, if you want to add to that, God bless you. But I know $45,000. I know he's working on recommendations for $45,000. That was approved by the city council. So I do know that. With another thing.
For what kind of decorations?
Like they were in the past, on the pole.
Oh, okay.
So I know there's $45,000 that was approved by the city council. I do know that, what else was there? There's another one that,
sidewalks, community garden,
yeah, so
trees,
trees done. The mural, it's good that you recommended a site, because now that whoever, if it's approved, they know what the concept is. So I think that adds a little bit more positivity, more specificity, so that way the council knows these funds are allocated for that. Can you go over on this one more time? Because there's one other thing that was, the council had already approved.
70,000 for the sidewalks, 20,000 for community garden, 5,000 for holiday decorations, 3,000 for trees for FOSTA, and 10,000 for murals.
And I guess that was the 2 points that we all have on. And again, I think you made a good point, Alex, that $70,000 covers a small amount for sidewalks. One, because the cost of anything is extremely expensive. If you didn't, maybe if you were to specify an area that you felt whatever, because who decides if the council approves it, where, which, be it Sonoma or Trinity or whatever, you're just saying, here's 70,000, go spend, but without any really direction, or at least a recommendation. So that needs to be looked at, or might want to be looked at. And I don't know how much 70,000 goes, but I know it's, when it comes to sidewalks and basketball courts, or that's asphalt, it doesn't go very far. So that's your recommendation. You might want to think about, if you're going to keep that recommendation, you might want to look at an area that you see as something that needs that. And I know there was at one time, and correct me, Ms. Rels, if I'm wrong, consideration of Canyon Del Rey, but I've been told that that's going to be covered by the Caltrans. But they're going to pay that hopefully one day soon. So those are the things
that I would suggest you look at, or, look at it. Be curious about and resolve, but I don't want to give you direction on my personal opinion, because that, I think this is up to you. But I do think, I'll just be blunt with you, and I wasn't going to do that. The more input, I think, on decisions like this, and to me, and I'm thinking very wisely, please understand that, because I'm the one that helped push that forward, so I have a little bit of love for this concept. I think the more you're inclusive of other groups other than yourself, there's more of a buy-in from the general community if it comes forward. Without buy-in, not buy-in, but without involvement in, be it FOSFA or be it other commissions or whatever, that's what I was going to tell you. Then it's harder to sell. Also, I'm pretty sure that I'm right, maybe the staff can tell me if I'm wrong. The funds for the Laguna Grande Park have already all been allocated. I mean, the money, we kept on adding more and more money. As you can tell, if you've been by there, they're already working on that. So all they're waiting for is at least the merry-go-round or whatever tool it is to make it whole. But the funds are there, the funds are being spent. 2 or 3 times we've had to increase the cost because they couldn't get this merry-go-round because it takes 6 months. So they went with this merry-go-round because it was more effective and it could happen in 7 weeks. So that costs like $40,000 more. So just to let you know, that park is, and again, staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but they're already working on it. It's everything's budgeted, and they just approved the last dollars for the special needs handicap. I mean, a playground for them. So that's all my great words of wisdom, but I just wanted to update you to what little I knew. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
Can I ask a question? I don't know all the rules here, but can you allocate money from next year's budget to do sidewalks also? Because 70,000 isn't going to go very far. But if we say every year we will spend, because the sidewalks aren't going to get done with 70,000, we all know that. But there's no sense in doing $70,000 worth of work and then stop, because neighbors down the street that didn't get their sidewalks are going to say, why didn't Mr. take care of that? Or why did Dave take care of that? Or, vice versa. So can you do that? Because that's what I'm looking at, because it's a safety issue. Our kids walking in the middle of the streets with no sidewalks, especially when it's raining.
Right. My only thought for you, and giving this all up to you, is yes, the answer to that is yes, you can. They're going to do $70,000 this year, which who knows how much. And then if it's recommended and approved, which is another issue, and then next year if you allocated $70,000 again for that, if it's approved, the keyword approved, then you can do that. You could do it as long as you have funds that the council continues to agree with your recommendations. I will just very carefully say this. I want this money to continue to move forward with your blessing and your approval and your recommendation. That's what I would love to see. It behooves you as a team, as a group, to make well thought out recommendations, because you don't want a council down the line to say, well, they wasted whatever. So, this is probably like $100,000 for the Monterey gets millions. We get $100,000 before you had zero. So I don't encourage you to do your due diligence. So that way the council says, this group is making wise recommendations to bring them forward, because if it's presumed that you're not making, and I'm not saying anything, not wise, right, then they're gonna say, well, this is a mistake. We're gonna take control of this and we're gonna spend it how we feel and ignore your group. And I hate to say that, but that's, could happen.
Could they do that since it was part of the Airbnb thing to get that approved? The monies would go to,
All it takes is a resolution, an ordinance change, or so anything can get changed, I would think. Don't say it will happen at all. I expect now, as long as I'm on the council, I will fight for you guys to continue that. Be it I agree with you or not agree, I just think it's really important to do when you present whatever you're gonna present. Make sure it's well thought out, make sure it has merit, make sure it has purpose, and and there's other things, but I'll just leave it at that. So that way they can say, hey, we thought this out, and I'll use this as an example. I'm talking way too much. Last year's concept, whatever you, and I don't remember what you did last year, but ballpark, the council unanimously supported. Not everybody agreed with every recommendation, but they saw the larger picture where everybody got a piece of the puzzle. The puzzle became whole. But that, so there was there wasn't a whole lot of questions. There was hesitance, but there wasn't a whole lot of questions. So just think about what you do. $100,000, $170,000 in this city, maybe not now, but it's significant dollars. It can change. It may, you guys did the park signs. That's what I remember. That was a chunk of change. All of that makes the parks look better. You did the sidewalks, the shading. That's a safety issue. That's visible change. You've done stuff that have made a difference in this community visually, even though they seem small for the average citizen, it's important to them. So I hope you continue that path of successful program that's well thought out. And I think this is, to me, again, I'm biased, one of the most important decisions that you make in the fiscal year. And that's just because you can make change, and change is good. It enhances the quality of life for our residents. Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Sure. So, actually, Mr. Jake, you can answer the question from there. You don't have to. No.
I'll do another chairperson.
So I just, back to Mr. Reardon's question. So if correct me if I'm wrong, as I understood what you said, rather than borrowing from next year's funds, it's putting to good use this year's funds so that next year's funds are there for this to continue the same projects.
What I think would happen, and I would probably push it, and it's not against you, but it's against you. If you don't allocate funds in a positive way, I'm going to personally come to the council and say, NIC did not do their responsibility. As much as I admire and love you all, I want to improve the city. So I will make something happen where we have $170,000 council, and they'll spend it in a heartbeat. They'll spend it in 3 minutes. We did that the other night. So if you guys don't come up with some positive ideas, trust me, the council will find ways to spend that money. And it won't take very long. So I hope you take advantage of that responsibility and bring forward some positive thoughts. Because if you don't do it, I'm going to do it. After a certain time, by June, we're not doing it. So let's spend that money rather than gets lost in a black hole. And that almost happened last year. But this group took action quickly and made that happen. That's just my thought. So, and then there's 4 more.
if we allot, like Commissioner Reardon said, 70,000 for 10 years, say, in perpetuity, so we have 700,000 at any point during those 10 years, the city council could change that particular funding source.
Oh, yeah, they could do that. Yeah, they could say, we're not going to, they could say this, I'm just being devil's advocate. It's the city's responsibility, and some would say it's the property owner's responsibility, because it really is, according to city, whatever, to repair to put in new sidewalks or repair sidewalks, whatever. They could say, that's our responsibility, not this one. So therefore, and again, I don't know if they would say that or not. Therefore, we're gonna take that $70,000 and we're gonna use it for, I don't know, art in public places or whatever it be. A new building for the historical commission, trash cans on every corner, whatever it be. They could go in that direction if they didn't see a plan or a system, or it did not fit within their vision or our
But-
vision.
Because it is the city's responsibility, and it's not happening, which is why we're considering it. So why would we be penalized for something like that?
If you don't spend, if you don't
I
spend,
don't, I understand.
if you don't spend the money if it doesn't come to the council by first meeting in June in reality.
Right.
That means your responsibility was not met because you had a whole fiscal year. So therefore, I'm gonna know that you have $170,000 and I could make recommendations and others could make recommendations to spend that money since it's not being spent and we don't want it to get lost. The money was, maybe David could help me. If the money is not spent, the council could take control of that money. Then you may lose it for the following years too. So once you don't follow the rules, they're gonna say, they may say, they don't have to, but they didn't take care of it this year. Why are they gonna take care of the following? So I think that you're not getting penalized, you just have a responsibility, and like you're building a house, if people don't clean their yard, somebody else is gonna clean their yard for them after a period of time. And our job as a council and your job as a commission is to make our city better. And I pointed out 3 or 4 or 5 things that you guys did last year, innovate the community better. Even the cleanup, for those people that took advantage of that, made the community better. I don't know if money's allocated for next year or not. I don't remember that list to do it again or not, but I'm just saying that's your job and that's our job is to make the community better. And I can't fight for the small things, some of the things that you guys did last year.
So I just try to get the structure. So if I made a motion that said that we were going to spend $700,000 in the next 10 years, that's $70,000 a year out of our budget here, would the council consider that as a serious motion to approve that? Because the Airbnbs are not going away. We all know that. They want to explode here pretty soon. And so our monies are coming in, and there wouldn't be a smart judgment of someone saying on the council, let's do away with the money to NIC, because it would be
Yeah, but
good.
you wouldn't be allocated.
It wouldn't be allocated, but it would look so good to the public, which they would believe in us then if we said, we're all going to get sidewalks here if we spend this kind of money from the Airbnbs. Because I did not know that a homeowner was in charge of those sidewalks. Because if that's true, then why did we spend money grinding down the ledges on the sidewalks?
My gut feeling is the city, the council, had already started 2 before you jumped in and did the other 3. Secondly, they weighed the safety of our residents versus responsibility. So they said, safety is the valuable people. I felt. I didn't say that at the time. No, I felt. People fall and trip on those things all the time.
I agree.
So they said the safety outweighs waiting until the end of life for all those things that got corrected. So that's what I think they weighed. Is that fair?
That makes sense.
There's all kinds of reasons as to why a homeowner is not going to put out money to fix a sidewalk.
I think just for an example, as I recall, saddens me actually, Mr. Olis complained about a sidewalk rising in the neighborhood by a tree at one time. The city, and this is maybe secondhand information, that, which was dangerous. The city or somebody came and said, you have to fix this because you're causing a safety hazard. $150,000 later, because it went pretty far into the street. So that resident, I don't know if it ever happened, was supposed to fix that sidewalk because he's ultimately responsible for that sidewalk in front of his house. That's what I believe. So Lonnie Olis did that unknowingly that it was going to cost $100,000 because of the. I mean, it was huge. I saw the rise in the, and it was due to a tree and how good, they rise sidewalks and they run the street and everything else. So that's serious stuff. And again, I think the council weighed the importance of, for my simple mind, safety was important for this council.
Through the chair, you want to address this as well. And there's something I think to move on with this item with the sidewalks, there's something we have to find out first of all. You said something, Mr. Pacheco, tonight, which I was always under the impression of before when I was on the council. Maybe it was something that I heard Mr. Freeman say or the mayor at that time, Mr. Rubio, that I was always under the impression that there has to be a buy-in from that neighborhood to have sidewalks put in. And if so, then we've got to do that before this. So I don't know, to be quite honest. I think there's a little there's kind of a hazy impression about that. And if so, then we need to find out about that before we can just start spending, wanting to spend $70,000 if they're in an area when there might be a neighbor that says, I don't want that sidewalk. And, you see what I'm saying is that we got to find out about this for sure so that we can start putting some steam behind this $70,000 so we keep on getting in the future so we can put the sidewalks in, because we definitely need sidewalks, but whose responsibility is it? Is it the cities or is it the neighbors? Because I'm unclear about that.
I can only go from way back when, before I was even born. Or when I was 5 or 6 years old on my house over here, my parents' house, they had to get buy-in from the residents because you probably know better than I. It went to the property tax and somehow got money taken out of the property tax in order to pay for the sidewalks along there. I'm not saying that's right, but that's what that's how.
That's what happened on Kenneth Street.
And I'm going by memory, so when
Yeah, so that can happen. If you have an area where there are currently no sidewalks and there's a push to get sidewalks put in, they can be assessed back to the property owner. And it's based upon how much street frontage they have. And it can be put on their property taxes, not like a payment system where they pay over a long period of time. It's also, from what I understand, it's part of state law that property owners are responsible for the sidewalks in front of their homes. And one thing to keep in mind is these sidewalks, when you're talking about putting in a sidewalk, a lot of these homes, a lot of these streets are not set up to have the 48-inch wide accessible sidewalk. And so when you're going to take 48 inches from an area where they may only have 3 feet or less, and people put fences and planters and all kinds of things in this area, which is really part of public right of way, it can be a little bit of can be cumbersome to tell people, hey, look, you're gonna have to remove this fence, you have to, this little retaining planter that you've built here is coming out, because we got to go back 48 inches. And then if you have a grade differential on with the homeowner's property to get the proper slope, cross slope, but I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but it's repairing an existing sidewalk, grinding it down is a much easier route than putting in new sidewalks. It can be done, but it's a way, if you want to spend money quickly, there's a lot that goes into putting in a new sidewalk to consider. But I want to be careful because I'm not really, I don't want to deter any decisions that you're making. I'm just, I just want you to be aware that putting in a sidewalk can sometimes be just difficult.
Just maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just guessing, so I apologize. The city hires countless consultants for numerous things. So potentially, maybe, let's say you had $100,000, just, the city said, okay, there enough, we're gonna hire a consultant to figure out whatever consultants do related to the sidewalks, and that may be up $15,000, $20,000. I'm not saying, but I know the city hires countless, I complain about that, countless consultants to do a lot of work. And I know that's across the table. And they're used because of shortage of staff, because of overwork, because of countless reasons. So consultants are a tool to make stuff happen, but consultants cost. I'm not saying they would use consultants, I'm just saying, if you say it's fair that it's possible.
It is very possible because of staffing and putting someone in charge of a project. Another thing to keep in mind is when someone does have a trip and fall on a city sidewalk, they file a claim against the city. So grinding the sidewalks was a very prudent action that was taken by the council to do that.
So they could, in reality, correct me if I'm wrong, they could actually, who has deeper pockets, the residents?
Yes.
The city of Seaside or the homeowner? So they may sue both, potentially, or they say, well, you guys only make $50,000 a year, the city has $50 million, whatever the amount is. Let's go after the city.
So, just two more things, and then I'll be done. One, can you make a sidewalk out of asphalt?
It's a good question. It's not a typical standard because of the variations that you can end up having with asphalt.
I just walk the park over there and I see asphalt being used, you know. The second thing is, and I'm not being vicious here, but does the city of Seaside really cares if the rest of the sections of Seaside get sidewalks? Because it's time to bite the bullet and do it, or we shut up and we never and just jump on it. Because it's one or the other. It's time, I think it's time to step up because we got tons of kids walking down the middle. Well, I live on Kenneth. There's no sidewalks halfway down. So I watched this elderly lady walk down the middle of the road. I watch cars go down the wrong way. I mean, it's a nightmare. Then you go on over parts and it's the same thing. And I think we should bite the bullet and push back and do $70K a year. But that's just.
You could recommend, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I am. You could all recommend whatever you want, and it may not get blessed. It may get blessed. Different council members have different concepts.
Yeah,
You just don't know. I just think that just whatever you decide, your thought processes, to me, speaking very biasly, is very important. So whatever you just recommend, whatever Mr. Little brings forward, I'm trying to be, he wants to feel, I assume, professional. The commission made wise decisions. The decision was thoughtful in the process. And this commission wanted to move the city forward to the best of their ability. That's it. I assume what you want to bring forward. If you brought forward, I don't know, whatever it be, that's possibly not a wise decision, she might not feel as warm and cuddly about bringing it forward. I'm saying that's, I don't know that to be true, David, but.
No, that is true, because I am going to be questioned,
Yes.
and I want to minimize the amount of questioning that I receive.
And I may question the most inside, that's what I do. And I'm just being very, I will be very blunt, and I think Mr. David will probably, agree with that concept. Because this is important to me, and I just feel a little bit of love toward your group and a little bit of love toward what the funds can do for it. And it took a lot of effort to get this dollar to this group to make recommendations, and I would feel terrible if that thing's happened.
Through the chair. I'd still like to find out though, because I'm still unclear as to what kind of buy-in we have to have from that particular neighborhood where we want to put a sidewalk. I'm still not convinced that we, the city, and I include this commission, I say the city, can say we want to spend $70,000 here, let's go and do it, do we have to do it? Or do we need some buy-in from the neighborhood? Because as I said, in the past, I was always under that impression. And if we do, and we don't get it, then we're wasting time and money. So I need this whole process, I just want to find out. If we know now, then great.
Well, I think the best thing to do would be to work with the city engineer, because the city engineer is in charge of the public right of way. And it's curbs, gutters, sidewalks, streets, everything that's in the public right of way. And the city engineer is the one that would have to help create a plan and potentially notify each of the residents that something was going to happen, and figure out exactly. And it's going to be the city engineer that's going to potentially hire a consultant to do that. And that consulting work can be to do an assessment, figure out exactly how that area needs to be prepped for it.
Just eminent domain doesn't play into it.
It can.
It can,
Yeah.
Just keep in mind, correct me if I'm wrong, I would strongly suggest if you are going, whatever you have to do what you want to do, I would suggest you have to get on the council agenda by the first meeting on June, because then we're looking at the budget year for the next fiscal year, and if it passes that first meeting in June, then I already told you what I'm gonna do. Commission did recommend me money. We have this money, let's do something positive for the city. I'm not saying that's not a threat, that's just.
No,
That's why I'm being blunt.
Yeah.
So whatever it is you do, you should do it soon, it's with as much energy and all the things I said earlier. I just think that you guys are a really important group. I can see that. You're a very important group, a very important commission. And this is an opportunity to make wise decisions that are gonna pull Mr. David, because he's the bottom line, he's the accountable guy. I mean, you're gonna be able to speak for it, but when he comes up here, and I'm over wherever I am, and I see something that doesn't make sense to me, I will probably point it out, pretty much often. I'm very consistent about pointing things out that I'm very, don't get, it doesn't make sense to me. As well as other council that I think I'm the most of the gang as such.
Well, then, having heard what I just heard from Mr. Little and from Mr. Chaco, can I request that for either our next meeting or possibly special meeting, we meet with the city engineer to just find out what we need to do, how we can put this $70,000 to best use, right away.
I think, from what I understand, I think that we should, with my feeling, we approve the $70,000 towards sidewalks. That's done. When we can get an assessment, a meeting with the city engineers, we can go forth and figure out which neighborhood to address, and then we get buy-ins from that neighborhood. That's me. And that way we can just get this off of the agenda, this item, and we can move forward to the next one. What do
So
you think?
just a thought for you, and being devil's advocate.
Okay,
My first question will be, what streets are they recommending? Why are they recommending? And how long do we have to wait until something is done? And how much money will the consultant cost that impacts that $70,000? Those are kind of, because again, being devil's advocate, and I apologize, Dave. If I find out that you have let's say $100,000 and $35,000 goes to consultants, and $65,000 goes to 12 feet of sidewalk or 16 feet, then you say, oh, does that make sense to this council? I'm just saying, I don't want to say I push it. I will ask those questions because and that's without thought. If I think about it, I probably ask a whole bunch more. I mean, I don't think quick as I get older, but those are the simple questions that I would have. Because if you chose your street and I live on Trinity, Upper Trinity, I'm going to say, well, why did you choose Upper Trinity or your street versus mine? I'm going to ask those questions.
But that's where you sold the bill of goods of $70,000 a year for the next 10 years, what we're gonna do.
Don't forget about the comment.
Yeah, other comments, things like that.
But that's how we'll.
And then you're tying the hands. I would ask the question. Then are you tying the hands of other commission to make recommendations?
Yes.
And do you want to do that?
Yeah, because
I'm just asking.
But I'm just saying, and then you turn around and say sidewalks is a must in Seaside.
Okay.
We're the only town. I don't know that.
I'm just being devil's advocate.
But it makes perfect sense, what you said. So.
But I think there's still a lot of unknowns, and that's why
Oh, yeah.
I think a meeting with the city engineer would clear a lot of things up. So but I do want to put this, start having the rubber hit the road and start putting it to use.
so what are we going to do? Are we going to go to the city engineer before we do this? Or are we going to?
Well, I'd like to, whatever you all think is best, either have the city engineer address us, make the next regular meeting, or have a special meeting with.
The next regular meeting is in May.
In May,
And then,
okay.
so we need to move on this.
Yeah, if we could, if you're all willing to, maybe a day, a night where we can have a special meeting with the city engineer.
From just off the top of my head, I think some people are going on vacation, somebody's on a leave of absence right now, and we have personal things, and then I can say this for the next 6 weeks. So.
Well, then if the reason why we want to have a meeting quickly is because come the end of June, is this fiscal year and the council has to prepare another budget. Maybe we just let the council know this is what our plans are right now. This is what we make a presentation to the council, saying this is what we plan on doing, and these are the next steps. Just so the council knows that we're pushing this along.
Just again, interfering again. I would suggest, and Mr. Dave can tell me if I'm wrong, I would suggest that the second meeting in June, they're going to approve the budget at the worst case scenario. And then if it's on the first meeting, if you bring something forward, whatever your list is, it should be brought the first meeting in June at the latest. But then Dave, again, correct me if I'm wrong, is going to need a week and a half to potentially 2 weeks to get it on the agenda. Does that seem fair to you? So by the middle of May, in reality,
we should
He's
have.
gotta have some, don't you think? Is that pretty good timetable, ballpark? So I'm just saying, be careful, just
I think I think, a special meeting with the city engineer would be. That's, I mean, fairly soon.
Is that what we're doing?
I think I now think it's necessary to do that. And would that require the full council, or could we just have a representation of the council, just to get information so we can then share with the council guys, so we don't, we're not violating the Brown Acts.
we have a
Subcommittee, right?
and that reports back to the commission as a whole for final decisions. Is that fair?
Well, I just wanted to say that the 70,000 of the sidewalks, we're not sure the location of that. The 20,000 of the community garden, we don't know the location for that. The $10,000 for murals, we don't know the location of that. So it's not just 70,000 in sidewalks, but what I would say is take the advice of our representative here and have a special meeting the 26th, and then have our regular meeting the 3rd. That means the 26th we can go over everything again, and then the 3rd we can do a final approval on this, and then Mr. Little would be ready to move forward after the 3rd of May. That's where I'm at with this, and having just a week between the meetings, we can go over the 70,000 sidewalks and then the other things that we're not sure about. I'm just concerned about sending anything to the city council that says like this, and we don't know what the location is. And to be quite honest, I didn't know that Seaside had a sidewalk problem. I honestly, on my street, I have sidewalks the whole way through LaSalle, San Pablo. Thank you, Commissioner Reardon, for bringing this to the commission. I think this is very important because I've been noticing them now. I have, now that we've mentioned it, these are all public property, so why we need a consultant to find a piece of public property and pour cement, I don't know the answer to that, but there are certain areas that, there are certain areas that are owned by city property that I noticed, like the basketball court, that actually area doesn't have a sidewalk either, but that area is owned by the city. We bought the city. We don't need any buying because there's no neighbors, so that might be a good area to put a sidewalk. I don't know, but now that I know that your area has no sidewalks, I'm
But
more
there's
concerned.
some terrible places in town that are down below, down below Mouse, that really, it is, and I drive down there or I walk, and there's kids in the middle of the street, and it's like, this isn't right. And but that's, no, we would have to agree on where we would want to do.
Where we want to do it.
What's
So,
the paper?
devil's advocate, and Dave made an extremely good point, because I remember when I was working for the city, way back when, if they're not ADA thing, there was a guy that no longer around, because I was probably 30 at the time, 35, he sued the entire city. He brought the federal government in, and they had to inspect every area of the city because of ADA. So and he was very indirectly or directly, he was a leader. And he just caused a lot of havoc, because not only he talked to the council did nothing. He went to the state was, we'll get back to you. Then he went to the federal government, and the federal government came down on the city and said, you will do that. And this was like decades ago, but I know what the guy looked like. I know where he left the city 5 years after that, moved to Hawaii. I remember all those things. And so you got to be careful with ADA because of the lawsuit liability.
Well, just to give you an example, if you put in a segment of sidewalk and you don't consider curb ramps at the corners, then you created a feature that is not accessible because people can't use driveway approaches to get onto an accessible sidewalk. They have to have some way to get onto it. So you also have curb ramps, which are have detectable warnings and other features associated with it. So I know it's probably hard to look at it and go, well, what's the consultant gonna do? But the consultant could get somebody out there to take measurements, survey slopes and all kinds of things that could affect cost.
Is that on each project? Or is that just a one time? I mean, we got sidewalks with telephone poles in the middle of them. So those are, there's no way a wheelchair will go around that, but that was done a long time ago. I know we don't do that anymore. But I'm just saying, do we need that inspection every time to take 20 grand or 70?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think we should have the engineer meeting and. But
What
have
about
it go.
repair? What about repair? Is that out of the question, putting 70,000 towards repairing some sidewalks, or you want actually new sidewalks, right?
I want asphalt or concrete sidewalks for these kids to walk on. That's all I want.
Another
There's no repairing dirt there. I mean, there isn't. And this is a city that's growing. And I mean, we've got kids galore. And,
Can I just throw out a suggestion?
sure.
On top of my head, and and I agree with you. Don't get that, I disagree. But to Alex's point, there's sidewalks in the city that have uplifts by 2 or 3 inches, which is a to be hazard. This, I think, and I'm not sure about this, the city may know of those areas already. So to get those fixed may be something, another thought. I'm not saying it's a good thought, I'm just saying it's a thought.
And they sometimes do use asphalt to take care of a very steep transition and lift where it can't grind.
Like on Yosemite, there's, by the fire station, there's 4 or 5 areas that are like this big. On Trinity, there's, it's an accident waiting to happen. I'm just throwing it out based on Mr. Alex's thought. And another way to improve without reinventing the wheel, not saying sidewalks are, and streets and roads or all that are a necessity. I'm just throwing that out as a, because I know the city council is aware of that rise of, sometimes they're like 4 or 5 or 6 inches off the norm. So again, I'm just basing that comment on the wisdom of Mr. Alex. Like there.
Lack thereof. I have a question. Oh, I'm not sure.
To just the 70,000 or?
Well, there's also this issue about 30,000 that we've already allocated, that has already been approved by the city council for the bridge. And the discussion is, I think, Jackie, right, they want the city, the engineer wants to do 15,000 for the mural on the fire department and 15,000 for Laguna Grande, but I think Dave said that Laguna Grande's already been paid for.
The play, no,
So there's no more money needed for Laguna Grande.
yeah, not for the park. One day they're gonna work on the, as you pointed out, the asphalt on that. And there's, if you go to Lincoln Cunningham Park, it's like a nightmare waiting to happen already. And all those 3 connecting parks, and there's a nice walkways, they're just, it's scary. So I'm just saying, yeah, the sidewalk, the special needs playground equipment has all been budgeted for. They're already working on it. The contractor's there. Everybody's happy.
Okay, so here's my motion. My motion is the $30,000 from the bridge that was already approved. We move that over to the fire department. And then we call a special meeting the last week of April. The 26th, we call a special meeting to go over these numbers one more time. And then we have our regular scheduled meeting May 3rd, which is a week later. And then by May 4th, Mr. Little will have a very good presentation to the city council.
And I'd like to second that motion but also just add that I really think the $70,000 towards repair, because from what I heard tonight was that one of the main things here is just to start using this money to get it in the future. And if we're going to use it on sidewalks, let's go ahead and without having to, do everything to get the neighborhood by, we can clear all that up in the meantime. But if we start using it towards repair now, that would be a good use of it, I think.
I didn't mention that. We're just, my motion is that the 30,000.
My motion is that the 30,000 for that's already been approved by the city council, that's 2 years ago now, we're talking about for the bridge, and we've expressed displeasure for the bridge. So to move that over to the fire department and up to 30,000, and then we call a special meeting the last week of April, and a regular scheduled meeting May 3rd.
Just curiosity, since this is what are you gonna do with $30,000 for the fire department mural?
The fire department on the side facing Broadway has a mural there currently that's going to be painted over.
Right.
And now the Neighborhood Improvement Commission is going to help put another mural back in that exact location.
With the $30,000 mural.
No, it's not a $30,000 mural. It's a $15,000 mural.
Well, 15,000,
Yes.
30.
I'm up to. So I want to keep it at 30.
I have to give you my opinion. I disagree with the repair. We've been waiting long enough for sidewalks. And you know what? If you're correct, I hope you are, then let the homeowner repair the sidewalks. Okay, we need to step up and help these people with those sidewalks. Or I'm gonna be dramatic. Blood is on our hands if a kid gets hit walking down the street. Because we are more to repair than putting in sidewalks.
I agree with you. Blood would be on our hands, but I don't want blood to be on our hands because we do it wrong.
Well, no, we're not doing anything wrong. Only thing we're gonna do is approve the 70K. We don't have to pull the trigger, if I'm correct, on having an engineer come out right away. We just gotta get the money approved by the council. Then we start working on getting it in motion. And I don't care if we pour only 12 feet of slab in front of a house, at least it's a beginning. Because there's no beginning. It hasn't started in 50 years. And so let's start. And we're able to do this.
But having been on the council, I think the council's want to know how that money is going to be spent. And we're going to spend it originally by talking to the city engineer, having a special meeting with the city engineer. And then we could, so we'll get it going, but just so the council can approve the budget again with us. So it maybe it's not repaired. Maybe it's just that we need to get this going. And I think the first item is to speak with the city engineer.
I will agree with that, because once we say repair, then it goes into a black hole for repairs. Then I think the city gets to choose where they do the repairs, correct? We don't.
I think the 60,000 that was allocated for sidewalk repairs previously was put into something that was already planned out. Right.
There were 5 phases, I recall.
Yeah.
And the city initiated it with 1 or 2 or 3 phases. And if you wouldn't have stepped forward, you would have had 3/5 of the city done. And when they take another 3 years to finish the rest of the sites. So that's, you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of what you did, is you supplemented to make something happen.
And I'm hoping that if we start something, with the $3 million that we still have left over from COVID and all that, that maybe, just maybe, the council will step up and spend some money with our money and put more sidewalks. It could be a possibility. Because they
Going out of thought, and the council will.
Yeah, they can say nay or yay, but if you get enough people standing up there saying, my grandmother's walking down that street, or my son, little 10-year-old, because someone has to pull the trigger on it. I mean, and I think it's us.
Yeah, so I'll second the motion. I think pulling the trigger is meeting first with city engineer.
Dennis, I just want to amend mine as well. I mentioned 30,000 for the mill, actually 15,000 for the fire. 15,000, this is from past months. This was from the 30,000, so 15,000 for the fire to allocate from the bridge fund. We'll still keep the 15,000 in the bridge fund.
So is the bridge not gonna be painted then?
The bridge is now facing a architectural review, I believe.
Oh, I see.
It's in some kind of status where we're determining the stability of the bridge. This is the last report. I have.
Oh, I see.
That's the city engineer.
So we can address
I remember
that
we
issue
talked
as
about
well.
that before.
So my motion is for $15,000 goes to the fire department mural. We have a special meeting the last week in April. We asked the city engineer, and then we also meet May 3rd. Is that clear?
Clear, and I amend my motion to follow just what Mr. Miller said. Motion.
I amend my second.
Yes, I can. So, want to have a special meeting on the 26th, invite the city engineer to discuss the whole process and all.
The sidewalks and the bridge.
Correct.
Yes.
The $30,000 they originally allocated for the San Pablo Bridge is now going to be split. 15 to stay with the bridge and 15 for the fire station.
Yes.
Mural. And then after the meeting on the 26th, continue on with a regular meeting on the 3rd. Finalize after hearing from the engineer.
To finalize our final recommendation budget for June.
Can I ask a question?
No, we're done.
We covered 20 minutes. This is for
Extend your
Dennis.
time.
This is for Dennis, because I always think of Dennis in all my thoughts.
Goes both ways.
That's good thoughts. The neighborhood improvement city cleanup. Is that a consideration for this dollar? Because some of you, i.e. Dennis, think that's a really good idea. And I'm just asking the question because I care about Dennis.
Well, thank you, Mr. Pacheco. You know, I think that my personal.
Can we just wait a second?
Oh, and also my question is subcommittee. Is that going to be a subcommittee? Because you said on the 26th, a lot of people aren't going to be there.
I'm just thinking forward, but one of the anyway.
I'm going on vacation.
Yeah,
I'm
and-
home on the 26th. Thank you.
That's what I want to know, okay. So, yeah. I can't even talk right now. So, we have two motions on the floor, right?
No, we just have one motion and a second.
Okay. So, your motion was to have a special meeting with the city engineer about sidewalks and bridges on the 26th. $15,000 from the bridge committee, from the bridge project down to the fire department. And then on May 3rd, we come back with our absolute final, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Final, just, recommendations to the city council of what we're doing.
That's exactly my motion.
All right. Dennis, you seconded?
That's correct.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any oppositions? Okay, thank you. Oh, that was painful. So, as far as these other dollar amounts, we have to consider each one as well. I think that's up to you guys if you want to make a motion tonight or make that in the final.
The intention of my motion was to go over the numbers again on the 26th, all of the numbers. And that was the intention of my motion.
Okay. All right. Well then, okay, so we will table this until the 26th. Is that what you wanted? Is that what we're doing? I have no idea.
I think that's, yeah. I think that's
Yes.
where it's just tabling it
Right.
and going over this.
With a qualified, with the engineer.
Yes,
who's
right,
gonna- Who's
okay.
gonna help us to solve this sidewalk dispute.
The only definitive dollar amount that we're talking about now, the 30,000.
That's what we, that has been done, okay. I'm ready, that's cool, I'm done with this. Can we move on to reports from staff?
No report.
Reports. Commissioner reports.
First of all, the cleanup this past week went, I thought went well on the, where I was stationed at the Trinity Tierra corner was successful, but especially at the end. It wasn't until like between 11 and 12 o'clock people really started coming. And I found that a lot of those people weren't really aware. So for the future, when we do this again, we need to get, I think we need to fly a little bit earlier and with more flyers just to get people knowing it a little bit, a little bit more. Because it was successful, it just didn't turn out to be so as successful as I thought it would be until towards the very end, and then 12 o'clock we were done. So.
On that note, there was a location that wasn't staffed. And then there was another location where there was absolutely no action at all. And I think based on the locations that were chosen, we should really take a look at where the need is. And, as we're driving around and, ask Mr. Soto what he thinks. Take our, and then put it together with what we think, because I don't think that those locations were really quite.
Right. And we went off his recommendation.
Right.
But no, I think that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other reports from commissioners? Rock on. We call this meeting to end at 8:03.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, yeah. Thank you. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Good night.